Allies or Enemies by Peachiibunnii, Chapter 17. Grian stared out the window, watching building after building pass by. They passed restaurants he'd been in and small stalls he'd stopped at once or twice. The thought of having to leave them and return to the Undercity made his stomach churn. They passed multiple streets he recognized or even flown over. He accidentally made a small chirping noise, forehead finally pressing into the glass. He perked up when he felt a hand on his knee, whipping his head around to see Hawkeye gently rubbing his knee. The hero was listening to Exuma talk, facing them in the limo they were in. He stared at Hawkeye's visor, unable to see if he was looking at him with the way it hid his eyes. Grin turned back to the glass, continuing to tune out Exuma's words. Grin felt sick. Thinking about facing the Undercity again and actually doing it were two entirely different things. He pulled Hawkeye's coat further around himself, remembering the cold and dark nights. Dark days at that. There was no natural lighting underground. Yeah, Birdie, you should pay attention. Hawkeye's words cut Grin's focus. The avian perked up and looked between the two in confusion. Don't tell me you haven't been listening, Hawkeye frowned at Grin. Grin sighed and glanced at the window again, huffing like a child who was pouting. I'm not exactly thrilled to be going back to a place I literally ran from when I got the first chance to, Grin muttered, glancing back when Hawkeye squeezed his knee a little. Grin turned back and focused, looking at Exuma. Fine, enlighten me. He ignored the way Hawkeye smiled. Exuma sighed, shaking his head softly again. I need you two to find out more on the warden, is what you call it? I want as much information as you can find. The creepy other creatures aren't my concern at the moment. The creepers and Enderman? Exuma asked, looking at Green for approval. Green nodded softly in agreement. Yes, if you find any information out about them, of course relay that to us. But your main priority is this warden nonsense. Now, I'm going to be giving you both communicators while you're working together. Exuma smiled, reaching into the duffel bag he brought, offering the white one to Grin and the black one to Hawkeye. Grin gave the man a look before gently taking it. It looked like a small radio with some buttons on the side. Grin inspected it, subtly noticing the disappearance of Hawkeye's hand on his knee. The blonde huffed in annoyance. It was something small that was keeping him somewhat more put together. The other's hand felt similar to Scar's, and it brought him a lot more comfort than he'd like to admit. What do these buttons do? Hawkeye asked, pressing one that made it let out a quiet beep. Zuma cringed a little and slowly took it back from Hawkeye to show him. That's a volume button. So the buttons on the side change the volume, and the red button here sends out a distress alarm back at the office that lets me know whoever pressed it is in danger and needs immediate life-saving help. The button on the front is just to talk into so you can communicate. Exuma finished, slowly offering the radio back to Hawkeye. Green watched the other take the radio, inspecting it. Oh, gotcha. So don't press the red button unless we're hurt or in danger. The hero nodded softly. Does it also alert the other of danger? He asked, gesturing between him and Grin. Like, if Exelko presses it, will I know if he needs help? Yes. So if you press the button, it'll make the other let out a loud alarm noise to alert you. The screen will light up and point you in the direction of them like a GPS, Exuma explained. I heard our scientists make them. Oh, Cub! Hawkeye grinned, looking at Grin. That's the scientist you helped save during the Warden attack. Exuma sighed, pinching his nose. It's a miracle you've kept your identity a secret for so long with how reckless you are throwing around people's names. Hawkeye giggled nervously, glancing at Grin before shrugging softly. You said this button lets me speak through the radio? He asked, holding it down. Testing. Testing. Grin perked up, looking down at his own radio in his hand, listening to Hawkeye in real time. Whoa, oh wow, I can hear it. This echo is insane. Wow, 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 ow. Whoa, oh wow, I can hear it. This echo is insane. Wow, 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 ow. Grin hit the other's hand and took the radio from him. It's not a toy, it's for us to talk to each other while underground. Grin shook his head and looked back out the window, not recognizing many buildings before realizing they were in a more run-down part of their city. Grin swallowed nervously, turning back with a small, distressing cue, offering the radio back to Hawkeye. The other seemed to acknowledge the noise as he took the radio and shifted a hand to press into Grin's shoulder blades. The avian stared outside, his breathing picking up. "Don't worry, I'm here," Hawkeye mumbled, smiling to the other. Grin glanced at him before groaning. "That's why I am worried," he muttered. Grin turned away from the other's nervous expression before his mood softened. "You have no idea what you're getting into," Grin whispered softly. Grin didn't bother to turn around as he stared outside. It was still early, so the sun had barely risen behind abandoned buildings. He only turned back around when he felt Hawkeye's hand leave his spine and Exuma's voice pick up. "We're almost near the building. I've carefully packed some items for you two. Food and supplies for the night. You aren't going to be gone more than 48 hours. The ideal is to have you back in less than 24. Even better if 12. It'd be best not to spend the night there. Your only mission is to observe and research. Fighting is not preferable, but in the case of emergencies, our scientist has made a new addition to your bow. An Exelqua?" The man turned to Grin. "We had our weapons specialist make you something as well," he explained. Grin immediately shook his head. "Oh, I can't use normal weapons and firearms. They weigh too much for me to carry while flying, and avian bones are hollow, so I can't lift more than half my body weight." Grin immediately shot him down. Exuma seemed determined, though, smiling behind his mask. "Precisely where we had our specialist make you something special," he grinned, offering said box to Grin. Grin stared skeptically. Although he couldn't see the device on his wrist, he could still feel it. His fingers brushed over the orange and blue coat he was wearing. He looked at Exuma before turning his head away, refusing whatever contraption the man had planned for him. Exuma seemed to understand, pulling it back into his lap. "This, by all means, isn't an apology of any sort. It's simply something to help you underground. I think it'll come in handy, and I've seen how you fly and spot things. It's to help in the dark." Grin looked back at him and stuck his hand out, gently taking the box. It wasn't that heavy, which immediately had Grin intrigued. He opened the top and stared at the glasses inside in confusion. They were pink, like most of his outfits, which he gave a side eye to Hawkeye for. The hero giggled and shrugged, pretending to not pay attention. Green put them on, much like the visor Hawkeye had. They were tinted. He leaned back in the seat when the night vision came on, hurting his eyes in the daylight. He glanced around and looked outside like a child trying out a new toy on Christmas. Hawkeye only chuckled at this. "What happened to our new devices on toys?" the hero teased, before immediately being smacked in the arm. "Ow, would you stop hitting me?" "Would you stop being annoying?" Grin asked, lifting the glasses to put them on his head. "No." Hawkeye crossed his arms. "Then no," Grin replied, registering the car being stopped. The light, playful banter immediately died off his tongue when he looked outside to a door attached to an abandoned complex. He sighed softly and looked at Hawkeye. "Come on," he mumbled, waving to the other to follow him. Hawkeye grabbed their duffel bag and followed after Grin, watching the limo drive away after they'd been left at the corner. They shared a look before Grin spoke up first. Why does he always wear the helmet?" "I've been asking that for years," Hawkeye blurted out, the tension between them dying off. "I used to think it was because he was some hybrid himself, but I guess it's because he had to make the decision to ban hybrids and a lot of people were upset, so he hides his identity. You know, he actually never wanted to ban hybrids or mutants." Hawkeye brought up, immediately putting the tension right back into Grin's shoulders. He only did it because the people wanted him to, and if he chose to keep them in the city, there would have been massive riots and bans to places anyway, and a lot of hatred spread around. And I know you don't want to hear this. You're right, I don't. Grin nodded, but his tone was light as he led Hawkeye into the abandoned warehouse. But he does want to bring them back, at least have more people be open-minded. He wants to create laws protecting them. Unfortunately, he doesn't have as much power as we all think. It took a year to ban hybrids with Senate approval. It takes years to pass laws, but he does want to help, Hawkeye continued, rambling all while following Grian. Grin came up to a piece of wood on the floor. He bent down to pull at the handle, pulling it up and leaning the top back against the wall behind it. That's nice, Hotshot. Grin was trying to listen. It was just hard to balance a political war speech and reoccurring childhood trauma memories. The more Grin thought about it, the more the staircase scared him. Hawkeye stood beside him, looking down. Well, it's just a staircase? He asked, walking past the avian a couple of steps. He turned to Green with a smile, waiting for him. He must have noticed Green's pensive smile, though, because then he reached out a hand to offer. Scared? He asked. Green stared at his hand and closed his eyes. He pushed the other's hand away before walking past Hawkeye to lead again. I'll be fine, he lied, as he walked down the stairs, shoving his hand into his pockets. He pulled the glasses back on to use the night vision, carefully going down the steps. You know, it's okay if you're scared, Hawkeye mumbled beside him. I'm not scared, Green snapped, letting his anger get the best of him. He stopped walking. He sighed and tilted his head up to look at the ceiling. I'm just... He took his hands out and gestured before turning to look at Hawkeye. I was kind of planning on never coming back here again, because if I did come back, there's a large possibility I might be hunted down and killed, Green replied softly. I told you, I ran away and escaped. I wasn't just running from the inner city. I was running from people, or hybrids, whatever they claim to be, all right? It was like some freaky cult, and Grin got a shiver up his spine, reaching around to hug himself, rubbing his biceps. A wide arm wrapped around him, holding him close. Well, that's what I'm here for, and I'm sorry. I know we kind of sort of made up and you understand, but I am sorry. I knew you went through a lot down here, but I didn't know you went through. Hawkeye trailed off. Grin shook his head. Don't worry about it. It's not that important. Let's just get down there and see what we can find, okay? He whispered, pulling away from Hawkeye to start walking. Hawkeye led him, following him quietly. Yeah, just know I'll be there with you at all times. I know we can separate, but I don't plan to. Grin laughed lightly. Thanks, he replied, making his way further down. It wasn't as bad as Grin thought. It came in waves, some worse than others, some sending his body into a stark panic. He pushed everything down up until they got to the bottom of the stairs crumbling and turning into a sort of dirt gravel trail that immediately faded into what felt like stone. The avian continued to walk through the tunnel, the quiet not doing much to keep him calm, considering the overwhelming sound of blood in his ears almost entirely blocked out Hawkeye's question. Do you think it's changed in the years you've left? Green hesitated, his palms growing cold and sweaty. Maybe? Maybe not much. I'm hoping we at least have electricity down here now. He laughed softly, trying to keep the mood light and playful to calm his nerves. Wait, Hawkeye began, still following the other. You didn't even have electricity? How did you keep warm? How did you see? He asked, the issues never once crossing his mind. Grian continued walking, not turning his head around. You either kept small fires, had little lanterns, but those often got stolen. The fires caused a lot of smoke, though, so we weren't allowed many fires, since the smoke was making everyone sick. Personally, we scrunched around for any fabric we could find and made makeshift beds or hammocks. Most of the time we slept in a pile together, Grin admitted, thinking back to his childhood home, wondering if it still stood. Walker seemed quiet, breaking the silence after a moment. Do I want to ask about bathing and hygiene? No, Grin replied, deciding to not say anything. Wait, the other began. So, if you're a civilian, how did you get a job? How did you go to school, and how did you get a place to live? Unless you still live with your family, but it doesn't matter. Grin turned to glance at him. I'm still someone behind this mask, and you can't know who he is. The other ended the conversation pretty easily. Now, keep quiet for a little bit. I don't know where the exit leads or where we'll be. He frowned, picking up his pace. He didn't see the way Hawkeye frowned and looked at Green with an almost disappointed expression. When they did make it to a bigger opening, Grin stopped and raised the glasses to look around at the wide open area. He squinted in the dark, unable to see much beyond small lights in the distance. He looked around the ground, finding a path among piles of debris. This way, he pointed, walking forward again. Hawkeye wordlessly followed, Grin's blonde hair showing up easily in his night vision glasses. Do you know where we are? Hawkeye asked. Grin glanced over his shoulder for a moment before humming in thought. Although the area didn't look familiar, he knew the vague direction. Not exactly. I know once we get to the main city, I'll have an easier time finding my way around. At least I think. Just don't go into any churches you see, Grin whispered. Churches? Hawkeye asked, before he watched the other take off his coat. Well, hey, what are you doing? Relax, Grin stopped, and turned to give his jacket back. I'm just going to fly ahead and see how far we've got. You have the radio, Grin began, making sure he was facing Hawkeye when he opened his wings. Grin knew the noise wasn't the most pleasant thing to hear, judging by Hawkeye's disturbed expression. You'll talk to me the whole time? Hawkeye asked, holding the coat close to his chest. Grin smiled and nodded, spreading his black wings open before taking flight. Grin missed flying sometimes. He always enjoyed it on patrol at night or flying really high during the day. He was never allowed to fly in the Undercity, so flying now was slightly odd. He couldn't see a skyline or a sky for that matter, only lights in the distance that lit up more over time. They were spreading across buildings, and before Grin knew it, his radio was going off at his hip. Where are you? I can't see you. I'm safe, don't worry. I'm just flying in place right now. Grin held the radio to his face. Looks like your question got answered. City's got electricity. A lot of it, too, Grin noted, his eyes catching something flying by him. He registered it as another avian, immediately intrigued. What the? What is it? Exaqua? Are you okay? Relax, Grin spoke again, seeing the other avian fly further away. Just another hybrid I saw, he replied, glancing back the direction he came to fly back. I'm coming back now. Keep walking. I'll see you. He spoke before putting the radio back at his hip. He glanced towards the direction of the hybrid one last time before flying back to Hawkeye. He easily spotted him in the dark and came back slowly as to not scare the hero. Hey! Hawkeye beamed, offering the other the coat as he approached. Grin immediately took it with a wide smile, his wings collapsing with another nasty crunch. It didn't hurt him, though. He happily put the coat back on, zipping it up this time to keep him warmer. He noticed Hawkeye's disgusted expression, though. Does it always sound like that? He asked. Grin frowned, but turned to lead the way again. Yeah, the scars open to pull the wings out. I'd try not to think too hard about it, he responded. We're close by, just a couple of minutes before we're at the edge of the city. We'll see plenty of light soon. Hey, I was wondering, Hawkeye whispered. Your wings aren't black, he stated. Grin froze momentarily, his body getting chills. How do you change their colour? I mean, I kind of saw them when you slept. They're all sorts of colours, so... Hawkeye trailed off. Grin made a subjective noise. He shrugged. I told you before. I left here and there may be people who want to kill me. It's just an extra step to ensure my safety. Above and below ground. If I were just a normal hybrid born and, well, I was born above ground. So if I was just raised above ground, I would have hidden them to be the colour of night anyway, just to stay hidden. Wait, you were born above ground? Hawkeye nearly yelled. Grin turned to shush him loudly. Shut up, he whispered. We don't want people to know we're here. Once we're in the city, it's one thing to use the disguises Exuma gave us, but it's another to alert everyone around us, he growled out. Hawkeye bit his cheek dumbly before repeating the question. You were born above ground? Much quieter this time. Grin sighed heavily, rubbing his nose. Yes, it's not important though. But then how did you end up in the Undercity? Hawkeye kept pressing on. Can we talk about something else? Grin asked finally, getting more agitated with the hero's questions. Alright. What was the other avian you saw doing? Grin wanted to rub out his own hair. What is with you and all these questions? he asked quietly in frustration. Why don't we talk about you for a while? You love talking about yourself. Grin rubbed at his temple, pushing at the headache he could feel growing there. Hawkeye frowned. Will you at least tell me later? Hawkeye asked. Oh my, yes, I'll tell you later, if you promise to just talk about something else. Grin would probably regret that statement in the future. Perfect, Hawkeye smiled, pleased with himself. What should we do first, once we get to the city? I mean, besides putting on these disguises? The other asked, as he pulled the bracelet from his bag. Similar to Grin's, but much smaller and thinner. Grin thought about that one. I'm not actually sure, he replied. I guess look for any skulk. We could potentially ask around, but we shouldn't draw too much attention to ourselves after all. I don't remember anyone, so the only other option is to possibly see if anyone I know is here. But I doubt I'll be able to. Every hybrid I know is above surface, or likely dead if they stay down here another 20 years. Dead? Hawkeye asked softly. The hero looked concerned at a lot of things Grin was dropping on him. Grin shrugged. Probably? He asked hesitantly himself. I mean, it's not easy down here, Grin muttered. There's a lot more issues than you think, he explained, as they made their way up to a fence. Grin almost ran into it before slowly stepping over it. He waited for Hawkeye to notice it, helping him over it. I think now is a good time to put on that disguise. Whatever it does, just stay quiet, he mumbled, looking at Hawkeye in slight confusion. He adjusted his night vision glasses before blinking at the other. Hawkeye looked back and then looked at himself in the dark. Don't look at me like that. It's on, he whisper yelled. Grin groaned. Great. They can design a bracelet that tracks my location and can't come off at any point in time, but they can't make something to disguise you. Top-notch technology. Grin rubbed his temple again. Forget it. We'll stay hidden, he whispered. Hey, that's probably for the best anyway. I'm not great with blending in and staying under cover. The hero nervously laughed. Don't worry too much about it, the avian turned to continue, leading the hero down a walkway surrounded by abandoned and run-down buildings. The lights were much closer, and they could see the shape of the city with how many lights had come on. Everyone in the city was finally waking up. Grin looked up and froze in his tracks, taking in the view. He looked around before turning right, slowly walking down a narrow walkway between buildings. Exagua? Hawkeye called after him, following blindly. Grin ignored his yells and cries, picking up his speed. Once out of the narrow way, he looked both directions, trying his best in the dark before turning left, close to the city. Exagua, where are you going? He asked again. Grin just kept going until Hawkeye finally found him in front of an abandoned building. Hey, why did you run off like that? He asked, out of breath. Grin stood still, staring at the house in front of him. It didn't have a ceiling or roof. One of the walls was crumbling apart, and the actual square footage couldn't have been more than 12 by 12 feet. But Grin remembered it always being a little bigger. He walked inside the makeshift door of the piece of wood Jimmy so proudly dragged home one day and insisted Grin to use as a door. Grin stood in the middle, looking around. The floor was still dirt, and the corner where they'd slept and often sat at all times of the day was practically sunken into from how often they'd roll about or walk. He turned to look where their old hammock had been, long gone along with anything else they'd left behind. Was this? Hawkeye asked, beside the other. Grin looked up, a little surprised the other had followed him in. There were only ever 3 people who stepped inside of his childhood home. It was like his heart. A 4th person made their way in, he supposed. Yeah, Grin replied, shrugging. I guess I do remember my way around here. More than I thought, anyway, he mumbled, moving to stand facing Hawkeye. We should get out of here, he mumbled, knowing Hawkeye would ask him about his home later. Ah, Hawkeye began, letting the avian leave first, heading for the city. Grin heard him following moments later. The walk into the city isn't that long. It seemed longer when I was a kid, because I was shorter, I think, but the lights will be new, Grin noted. That's good, Hawkeye began. Was your home, Always that run down? Dirty and abandoned? Yeah, we used to have neighbours, kind of. People around the area, but it looks like all the people abandoned the outskirts of the city in favour of major cities, he explained as they kept walking. He didn't think much of it. It was the way his life was, after all. He'd grown used to it at this point. There was no point in hiding it after all. Grin perked up once they'd gotten closer to the city. The lights bright enough to illuminate their faces. Just street lamps and small shop lights. Green only remembered these shops as small run-down stalls with minimal food to steal when he had enough energy to run in and out of town quick enough. This is, Green began, noticing the layers of buildings and balconies even. It was like his entire childhood had been a lie, and the entire city was full of bright lights and colour, even in the early morning. Green lifted his glasses up to look around, already seeing people out and about in the distance. He turned to Hawkeye with a smile before he immediately screamed in horror. What the fuck? Green asked while staring at Hawkeye. In front of him was no longer the human hero who had worked with him for years. What? Hawkeye asked in confusion, raising a grey arm to scratch his head. The bracelet lightly fell down his wrist. The disguise, of all things, made Hawkeye's physical appearance Vex-like. The scars littering his skin from before looked like the streaks of a real Vex's skin. You're, Graham began, having to take a breath to calm himself and remind himself it was all in disguise. You're a Vex, he explained. Well, you look like one. Your disguise is... He gestured. That's scarily accurate, Graham explained. Hawkeye didn't seem to understand. What's a Vex? Oh boy, Graham began, glancing around, noticing a few people spotting them, but continued walking. I'll explain after we change. Come on, in the alleyway, he gestured, motioning for the hero to follow him into an alleyway. What? Hawkeye whispered, awkwardly shuffling into the dead end. You want me to get changed back here? Hawkeye asked in disgust. Green took off his jacket and opened his wings, the noise still bothering the hero. Yes, now get changed, he grumbled, turning his back to Hawkeye to watch for people. He heard the hero's clothes being shuffled as he spoke. As I was saying, a Vex is... it's kind of hard to explain. It's more of a monster than an animal. There aren't many here, so I'm not sure why. Your disguise would be an uncommon... Oh, I get it. It's because you're not local, he explained, before shaking his head. Anyways, you can't, eat anything down here, Green cringed. The shuffling noise stopped, and footsteps approached. Why not? Hawkeye asked, adjusting the buttons of his grey button-on. He had regular shoes and jeans, typical and normal for the Undercity. Grant took a glance at the clothes before walking to the bag to pick out his clothes. He turned his back to Hawkeye and began lifting his shirt. Hawkeye yelped and turned to face away from the other. Because Vexes eat blood, Grin replied simply. What? Hawkeye whispered, glancing over his shoulder, before quickly turning around. They're monsters, Hawkeye. They aren't going to eat like hybrids, he explained, as if it were simple and easy to understand. He walked up to Hawkeye and put his hands on his hips. He was wearing a black shirt with no sleeves and a red hood with a sort of scarf on it. He had a basic part of black baggy pants tucked into his boots. Ready to explore? Grian asked. You seem rather happy to be here for someone who absolutely hated us, Hawkeye mentioned, following after the avian, just now noticing the colours were a brown and tan colour. I'm not. I'd rather not be here still. Grian slowly walked to the fence in front of the buildings and leaned against it, realizing it was railing for a sort of balcony. He glanced around, seeing many layers beneath the ledge, and upon looking up, there was more past the point Grian could see. There were bridges and clotheslines, people getting out and about, lights lighting up the walkways and indoors of shops and homes. Grian was amazed at how far the area had come, of course, but the size of it created another problem. It's so big down here, Hawkeye spoke, looking around as well. Now that Grian could really see him, he noticed the pointy ears and sharp teeth the other had. He must have been staring for a while, because then Hawkeye turned his head slightly, and although he still couldn't see through the visor, he could only imagine the hero looking at him. Was it like this when you were down here? He asked. Green looked around and gently shook his head. Well, the lights are new. A couple of stories were normal, but everything looks nice, Green noticed. Not as dirty as I remember, he admitted, stepping away. It's also much bigger, which means there's only twice as much area to cover. Grin trailed off. Maybe we should split up to cover more ground. But it's easy to get lost here, Grin mumbled to himself, staring at his boots. Maybe if you stay on this level and I can fly. He stopped, something hitting his foot. He glanced down to see a source of ball by his foot. He looked up to see Hawkeye waving to a small child, a little scared of him, a little scared of them. The child had dog ears and what Green suspected to be a tuck-tail. The hero bent down to pick up the ball, watching the child's expression deepen. Oh, Hawkeye, you shouldn't, Green began, as the hero rolled it back to them. The child nervously took it before running away. Hawkeye looked up from where he was crouched before standing up. You think they're scared of newcomers? He asked. Green only frowned, knowing the other didn't know. Uh, actually, Green noticed the other's confused expression. Listen, you're a mutant breed. Why? I don't know, but they don't typically mix well with hybrids, Green explained, cringing a little. The hero only tilted his head. But I thought they were the same thing? The hero asked. Wait, he began. Sorry if that's offensive. Grin smiled lightly at the apology. What, is the difference then? So I know better? Grin chuckled lightly. So a hybrid is a half human crossed with a half an animal. A mutant is a human crossed with a monster or any other unnatural being. You can be born a mutant, but you can also be created as a mutant through tests, experiments, accidents, stuff like that. Green quickly explained, desperately wanting to change the topic so the people around them didn't think they were insane. After all, they were supposed to be pretending to be hybrids and mutants their whole lives, and Green learned the difference before he could remember. Hawkeye still seemed confused, but nodded slowly. Hybrid, human animal. Mutant, human monster. Mutant, also unnaturally made hybrid? Hawkeye mumbled, thinking he got it right. Yes, Green confirmed. Hybrid equals human animal. Mutant equals human monster. Mutants also equal unnaturally made hybrids. Or mutants, Green pointed out. But wouldn't that just mean they're still a mutant? Hawkeye asked. Kind of, Green agreed. It's hard to explain. Some mutants are born with their abilities and bred into the world, and others have accidents. Others are experimented on. It's kind of just the way these things go, Grin mumbled. Anyway, we should get back to looking around. Grin turned to start glancing around, walking down the path along the railing. Hawkeye was quick to follow, but Grin could tell he was itching to ask more questions and learn more about the, quote, monster world. That's when Grin spotted it. Skulk. Of all places, tucked away in an alley, layers beneath them. He stopped momentarily before vaulting over the railing, easily gliding down to the alleyway. He heard Hawkeye yelling some sort of concern about him, but the blonde ignored him in favor of looking around. He glanced around, turning a full spin to see Skulk everywhere, climbing the walls of buildings, growing on the underside of the bridges, on the stairs, in people's stores. Green felt sick as he jumped from his spot to find his way back to Hawkeye, perching on the railing. Hawkeye looked concerned as he stared at the anti-hero. That expression doesn't look very comforting. Green cringed. That's because it isn't. There's a problem around there. A big problem. So. Oh, my throat is sore. That's what happens when the videos recordings are like half an hour long, or in this case, 35 minutes. That's okay, bye. 35 minutes, or 34, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, that's besides the point. So they're in the Undercity now. I've no clue. Wait, when did this? Was this before or after. Oh, I forgot the Arcane. Well, it came out. It was published in 2023, so I think. Ha! Oh my God, Arcane copied them. um, I think I don't remember when Arcane came out. Oh, but this is fun. I like that they're there. They're down there now. So that's fun. I love Scar being like, um, just trying to learn, and Grin's like, shut up. It's actually being very helpful, but it's really funny. It's like, this will be a fun dynamic. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Tell me what you thought in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.